We can learn more about how to do science if we look at how people have done science. So they don't go around falsifying, as Popper says. That's not the scientific method. That's not being scientific and logical and rational. We've got to look at what confirmation is. Confirmation is a tight, logical, inductive connection. Integrated and inductive. Integrated, it means it's connected with other things we know. Inductive, it means we generalize it. We get some individual things, particulars, and we abstract away a commonality. Induction is valid. And integration is critical in developing knowledge. We would not be where we are if we did not connect geometry to astronomy and geometry to mechanics and mechanics to astronomy and electricity to brain function and biology and neurology. Connect, connect, connect. But we should look at what the Wright brothers did, analyze that, and think about that and see that's how we do science, not listen to someone who is trying to help see what science is and define it. And I don't know him personally. Maybe he had his heart in the right place. Maybe he was corrupt inside. Zero idea. And I'm not going to make crap up and try to falsify it. To hell with that and dealing with people. If we want to confirm something and know what we're talking about, we want to have evidence so we can be sure that we're being correct in judging someone. I'm not going to be Popperian about Popper. But we want to look at the Wright brothers and see they didn't do what Popper said. So, in their upbringing, different things are interesting. So just look at this. A few things in here. They learned from their mother. So they learned when they were young to, like one of them learned that when he was going to get wood on a windy day, get wood in the barn and bring it back into the house, if he bent over, there'd be less wind resistance and it'd be easier to walk. And he did not think, oh, that's just like some idea, now let's try to falsify it. No, he confirmed it. He saw that it was true. When he bent over, oh yeah, less wind resistance, in contrast to when he stood up. And please don't mistake a contrast with an attempt to falsify or anything like that. We don't go out there to try to show stuff as false. No one does that ever. That's an unending quest that will never end. There's all kinds of things we would have to try to falsify. Never going to happen. What we want to do is try to confirm something and put it in context of what we know. It's inductive and integrated. So they would lean over, and in context of other stuff they do, that's why induction is complicated, because it involves a lot of stuff. It's not just simple like deduction. But he would, just like his mom, she learned this. Stand up, wind pushes against you more, bend over, pushes less. Or she talked with them about how birds fly and how the wind is related to that. And they saw by observation how the bird works. And then decades later, Richard Feynman will be doing a similar thing with his dad, as I've discussed before. He asks his dad, what kind of bird is that? And his dad says, it's a beautiful bird. And little Feynman says, but what's it called? His dad said, I could tell you the name of the bird and you'd know it in all kinds of different languages. Then all you know is what people call it. You've got to look at the bird. You've got to listen to the bird. You got to understand why it does what it does. You got to observe everything. You observe, you immerse yourself in reality. You see what it does and you confirm and you're real. We don't make stuff up. His dad didn't say, I can tell you the name of the bird and you know what it's called, but you need to make stuff up about it and see if it's true. Can they live in water? Oh, it died. I guess not. Can you throw them against a building? No. We don't do that. That's like ludicrous. And it's important to look at examples like that to take it seriously, to see what does this actually mean. Are we actually being scientific? Be serious, please, about what someone says. Think about the consequences. And those things would be so-called science, but they're not. It's abuse. So the Wright brothers would look at the bird, listen to the bird, understand what it did, why, observe everything. That's what their mom was getting them to do too. They were very experiential and inductive. They weren't lost in their heads. And they did that, and they applied that to bicycles too. When they were a sled first, they built a sled. The mom helped them learn how to design it, how to make it go fast, thought about how to improve things instead of just taking what's there that other people do, looked at causes. What causes it to go faster? And so they built their own sled, the Wright brothers, when they were young, with the help of the mother, and they used a candle to make the runners more smooth, so there'd be less friction, so it could go faster, things like that. And it would be confirmed and developed from experience. It wasn't just stuff made up without warrant, as Popper would say. And let's see. Bicycles, sleds, some things like that. I'll talk about this in another video. Maybe I'll put a link to it. But they learned a lot. So then, later in life, they're older. They work on bicycles. They work on airplanes. And they've developed some airplanes. And they don't fly very well. So here, WrightBrothers.org. The 1901 wind tunnel. The 1901 Wright wind tunnel. So, quote, after the 1901 flying season at Kitty Hawk, the Wrights were seriously discouraged. And neither of their gliders from 1900 or 1901 had worked as anticipated or had produced sufficient lift. They had begun to suspect that the data they were working with to design their aircraft was incorrect. This data was gleaned from the experiments of Otto Lilienthal, something like that, Lilienthal, however you pronounce it, who, before his death in 1896, had designed 16 gliders and made thousands of glider flights, many more than any pilot scientist before or since. His unquestioned success gave credence to his data. Whatever the accuracy of Lilienthal's data, the Wrights had come to a dead end. They simply did not know what to do to improve the performance of their gliders. If they built a third glider at this point, its design would be nothing more than guesswork. Unquote. Remember, according to Popper, they should just keep guessing and trying to do stuff, guessing and testing. Note, quote, and at their present pace, building and testing one glider per year, it could be several lifetimes before they discovered a workable design. Even then, they wouldn't know if it was the best possible design. They decided to discard Lilienthal's data and generate their own. They built a wind tunnel, the second in America. The first was built by Alfred Somm. Over the winter of 1901 to 1902, they tested over 200 wing shapes to find the most promising, then thoroughly investigated about 45 shapes to determine the very best, unquote. So notice they're doing what their mom taught them long time ago. They're doing principles. They have induced this principle. Induction is valid. Design first, then make the real thing. Or as some people say, measure twice before you cut once. Or as they say in Russia, measure 9 times before you cut once. Plan, think, measure out. They knew that that's a way you could do things. They generalized how to do things in practice, we need to think first. There's this causal relationship between thinking and acting successfully. And they've generalized about that from things they've learned from their mom. generalization right there, not a Popperian thing. And they're trying to find something that works. They're just not going around popping off, making up a bunch of stuff to try to falsify again and again and again, as it says. Quote, and at their present pace, building and testing one glider per year, it could be several lifetimes before they discovered a workable design, unquote. So, they tested stuff. Quote, so again, quote, over the winter of 1901 and 1902, they tested over 200 wing shapes to find the most promising, then thoroughly investigated about 45 shapes to determine the very best. To do this, they built 2 instruments for their wind tunnel, one to measure lift and another to measure the ratio of lift to drag. When they compiled all their data, they were surprised to find that Lilienthal had been correct. They, in fact, had been naive, had been, I think it's a typo here, should be, quote, they, in fact, had been naive in the way they applied his data. Lilienthal investigated a single wing shape that he used for all his gliders, and his data was correct for that shape only. The Wrights had presumed that even though they used different shapes, Lilienthal's data for lift and drag would be close enough. They were astonished to find how much difference in performance there was between wing shapes. Armed with this new knowledge, they felt ready to get back in the air, unquote, and then they did. So, they used a wind tunnel. They found out what worked. They confirmed and generalized from there. They said, this shape works here, that's going to work in our real plane because of similar conditions, a certain context. They didn't just make something up and try to falsify it and we have no idea if this will work because generalization isn't valid. Just because it's true in one case doesn't mean it's true in another case. Wrong. When there's causality, there's causality. And they knew it and they relied on it and they were able to make a plan that worked because they were not Popperian. Here is a thing we should dig into and see what the Wright brothers did. Then we can learn more about how science actually works. People will be much better off. And thankfully, some scientists who do believe in the Popperian falsification thing don't actually do it in practice. They're influenced by methods of Newton and Galileo and Aristotle and some rational inductive methods. And that's implicit in some of their thinking, some things they can't get away from. Besides, if they want to be successful and be practical and be efficient and get something done, they have to rely on some of that knowledge developed by induction to do it. They got to be parasitic and rely on valid methods to do their invalid stuff. If they had to start from scratch, it'd be much more clear how it's a total failure. It would take forever to try to do some of that stuff. But again, and you look at this page, it shows the wind tunnel of the Wright brothers, and then over here on this one, here I think this is the Wright brothers, some quotes from themselves. Let's see. Here on Florida University, FIEDU, the Franklin Institute. Okay. It says, in the fall of 1901, the Wright brothers decided to begin a, quote, series of experiments to accurately determine the amount and direction of the pressure produced on curved surfaces when acted upon by winds at the various angles from 0 to 90 degrees, unquote. They built a wind tunnel. Their tunnel no longer exists. A replica was built in the 30s. I think it's a quote from the Wright brothers again. Quote, we had taken up aeronautics merely as a sport. We reluctantly entered upon the scientific side of it. But we soon found the work so fascinating that we were drawn into it deeper and deeper. 2 testing machines were built, which we believed would avoid the errors to which the measurements of others had been subject, unquote. And then they talk a little bit about the wind tunnel there too. But interesting. So they looked at, again, different wing shapes to see which worked to confirm. No making stuff up and trying to show us false. Are they going to risk their lives? Hey, Are they going to be like, hey, we don't know if this works, but let's get out there and try it? No, that is loony. Think about that when you're thinking about Popperian science stuff. Are we really going to like not know for sure if this works, or no theory can be true? We can't generalize, and we're just going to build a bridge and hope like people don't die? They sure the hell better not be building bridges. So many things like that, or are we going to build airplanes like that? No, that's loony. We know there's human error enough in different like unexpected wind conditions enough as it is that some people will die in air traffic, like air flight. Never mind this like guess and check crap. No, that's irresponsible and unethical. If people want to be doing this right, they better be doing it right and confirm what they're doing, and it better be real. So here is the Wright brothers versus Popper. The Wright brothers got it right. Popper got it wrong. This helps confirm what is correct. It gives you contrast to know that Popper is right. It is not falsifying Popper because he's wrong in the first place for other reasons and a lot of different things. And it's just wrong because it's wrong. We want to see what is correct. Again, if we're going to be like scientific about science, according to what Popper says, all we do is make stuff about science and try to check it. No, we want to be right, confirm things because lives depend on it, our well-being depends on it, among other reasons. But again, in the wind tunnel, the Wright brothers saw what worked. They observed it in particulars, generalized from there. In these cases it works. In all these cases it works. They looked at varying conditions and things. And they went, what did they say to stress that again? They thoroughly investigated 45 shapes. And where did it say? I was thinking about angle. But nope. Okay, but they looked at a lot of different shapes. In the wind tunnel, I'd imagine they had the air going at different speeds sometimes, but it's something they built from, interesting, they built their wind tunnel from stuff they found like in a junkyard. They got like a fan here and a motor there and something else here and a box there, and they didn't like buy one. So pretty cool. So some food for thought. Let's dig in and be real about how we really do things. Throw out these misconceptions and prejudices and see what we actually do to make science. We need to be independent and think for ourselves, not get caught up in some insurmountable difficulties, as Popper claims. If induction works, it works. And we just got to figure out why and when and under what conditions. Just as we do scientifically with an internal combustion engine. We don't just throw up our hands and say, oh, it's impossible to know. I don't know. It doesn't work. No, we see under what conditions an internal combustion engine will work and be practical. Under what conditions does a cell phone work and be practical? Under what conditions can we drive with rubber tires on the road? Condition of tires, speed, traffic, weather conditions, water on the road, texture of road, friction, curvature, all this stuff. We look at that. Or under what conditions can we fly in a plane? Or under what conditions will a television work? Things like that. Same thing. Under what conditions will induction work? When does it not? We should be scientific about it like that. Food for thought. Peace.